Hi everyone, I'm Lynda Cheldelin Fell with Grief Diaries, and today we are catching up with Julie Downs. Julie and her husband Bill lost their son's wife, and their son's best friend in a car crash caused by a drunk driver. And as you can imagine, that caused quite an impact upon one's marriage. Let's talk with Julie and find out how they're doing. Take a look. Hi Julie, how are you?
I'm doing fine, and yourself?
I'm doing well, thanks so much. So Julie, you lost your son Brad, his wife, and his best friend Chris in a car crash to a drunk driver. And there are other parents, you and your husband Bill are founders of AVIDD, advocating for others that have walked your journey. And as the founders of this, you are kind of a beacon of light. Yet, I'm going to ask you something that has affected every bereaved parent. How has this impacted your marriage?
When Bill and I lost the kids, we had been married for 25 years. We were very close. I didn't think that anything could shatter our relationship. It took a toll on us. I pulled away from him because I couldn't deal with his grief because I couldn't even deal with mine.
Right, fair enough.
I couldn't even look him in the face because I could see the pain in his eyes, and I couldn't deal with it. In a sense, I became like selfish because I thought my hurt and my pain was greater than his because I was the mother. I carried my son. I birthed him, I fed him, and I just couldn't see that. I couldn't see his pain because I couldn't see through mine.
Right.
And
there was no bottom to yours.
Yeah, there wasn't. I mean, it was just ongoing. It was devastating, awful.
It's a fog. It's like walking through pea soup fog.
It really is.
And you can't see anything around you. It's actually very scary.
And for 2 years, I became a recluse. I mean, I hid myself in my home, not going. I quit work, couldn't do anything, couldn't function, curled up in the fetal position most of the days. And Bill went back to work, and I saw him as, the strength. He was going on, and here I was the one that was stuck. I was struggling. And just 4 years down the line, he had what I can only describe as a nervous breakdown. He came to me and he told me that he didn't love me anymore, and I was devastated. I thought that we were doing fine because I thought that he was grieving the same way I was, but it wasn't. He wasn't grieving at all. He was trying so hard to take care of me and to
be the strong one.
Be the strong one that he was not grieving his son. And I didn't know this. I mean, I didn't understand it. We had never been in this situation before.
Right.
I just assumed that we were okay because we had always been close and that we were going to make it through it. But he told me he did not love me anymore, and it was like the feeling of losing my son all over again. Here, I've lost my son, and now I'm fixing to lose my husband.
Right.
He never said he wanted a divorce, but he wanted me to leave him alone. He wanted nothing to do with me. And it was hard. We went through that for about 1.5 years.
What did you do with it? How did you get through it? And then what was the turning point?
I prayed. I didn't know. See, at that point, it was 4 years. I had come full circle where going through being angry with God, coming back to God, and knowing that I could not deal with losing my son and my daughter-in-law and then Chris without turning to God and letting God's grace get me through a day. And so I had turned to God, but Bill hadn't. He was still angry and hurt. So when he did this to me, telling me, when I say did it to me, because that's what he did. I mean, I had lost my son, and here he is. He's taken my marriage away, too. And so, I was angry. I was hurt. The only thing I could do was pray. I prayed so hard. I insisted that God listen to me. I mean, I would say, God, you have got to listen to me. The only way that my marriage is going to be saved is if you open Bill's heart and you come into his heart. Because I know if he would open himself up to God, that he would open himself back up to me.
Right.
And I prayed hard. It was a daily thing.
Life or death once again.
Yeah. You know, and then I got to the point where I started getting, I started saying, okay, God, you know, you're not answering my prayer. But I also learned in that time, which was 1 year and 2 months. It took 1 year and 2 months of me praying. God answers your prayers. He answers them in His time, not in your time.
Yeah.
He knows the exact time to do it.
Yeah.
And if He would have answered my prayer a month after I started praying, Bill wouldn't have been ready for it. You know, Bill had to go through what he was going through to be ready to listen to God at the point when it all came to a head. I got tired of the way he was treating me. He was very disrespectful. He said ugly things to me. I would tell him that I loved him, and he'd say, yeah, I know. You know, it was awful.
He was hurting, and he was taking it out on you.
He was hurting. You know, a hurt person hurts.
Yep.
And
hurt people.
He was taking his, and I think that he looked at me, and he saw I was a part of Brad. I was, you know, and he saw he was hurting so bad over losing Brad that maybe he was even blaming me in a sense, you know, that somehow I was the reason why he was hurting or something. I'm not really sure. But the one night we got into a discussion which ended up in an argument, and I told him I couldn't take it anymore, and I kicked him out. I told him, you got to go. I said, I do not believe in divorce. I will not divorce you, but I can't live like this. We can be separated. I said, I can't do it anymore. So he left, and he was gone for about 45 minutes because I knew he had nowhere to go. At that point, because of burying the kids and everything financially, he couldn't have even gotten a hotel that night. We were just financially strapped. And so I locked myself up in the bedroom, and he came home. He knocked on the door. I ignored him, and he slept on the couch. And that night, he had a dream, an encounter. He had a walk with God, I guess, a vision or something. And the next morning, I was sitting by his side I guess it was about 4 o'clock. And he sensed that I was there, and he opened up his eyes, and he looked at me, and he started crying. He begged me to forgive him. And I told him that the only way we could go forward is if he would agree to go to counseling. And he said, call the counselor. And so that day, I called the counselor, and it was just, we stepped through that. Our first meeting with the counselor listened to Bill, and she looked at him, and she said, you're a walking dead person. And he started crying, and he said, yes, he was. And she told both of us that she could work with us with our marriage, but she wouldn't be able to do us any good until he grieved his son. Oh. And so she started stepping him through the grief process. And I think the thing that really helped him is that she got him to write a letter to Brad and tell Brad everything that he wanted to say to him that he hadn't said or wasn't able to. Bill was living with a lot of guilt because he felt that he wasn't a good father, which he was the best father, but he felt that because there was times he put Brad off, or he said no to him, and he didn't take him to the movies, or didn't do what Brad wanted to do, that he missed out on all that. And they had fought, you know, like father, son. Mm-hmm. They were so much alike. You know, they clashed sometimes. And he just felt that he didn't know if Brad knew that he loved him, you know. And that letter, I think, is what helped Bill to take the step into healing. And our marriage just fell right back into place after that.
Is that right?
I think it was a year. He gave his life back to the Lord. He was rebaptized, and I rededicated myself. And then that same night that we were rededicated, we renewed our wedding vows. and now we're going on 35 years. It's been almost, well, it'll be 9 years in October that the kids have been killed, and we're probably happier and closer now than what we ever have. If I wouldn't have prayed, and if I would have just let him walk out the door, or if I would have walked out the door when he told me he didn't love me anymore, I would be missing out on so much right now.
Yeah, fair enough.
You know, I'm just glad I held on. He was worth holding on for.
Beautifully said. Boy, that's very profound. What words of wisdom would you like to leave any bereaved parents who are facing the same situation as you and Bill did?
It's tough. I mean, there's no way to say it's not tough. I mean, it's probably going to be the hardest thing that you ever have to deal with. You can't go over your grief. You can't go around it. You can't go above it, under it, whichever. You have to go through it. I think the thing that Bill and I, you got to give each other room to grieve. You know, and men, women, mothers, fathers, you grieve differently. Nobody grieves the same, but a man grieves different from a woman. And I needed to give Bill space, which I didn't, because I think I smothered him in a sense, because I was so afraid that something was going to happen to him. So if he didn't come home, if he was 1 minute late, I was on the phone frantically saying, "Where are you? Where are you?" And I was smothering him with my insecurities that I developed after the kids were killed. You know, my lack of confidence, my lack of fear, just fear. I feared everything. And I put it all on him. But you've got to give each other space. I think that would be, and don't give up. I mean, don't make any harsh decisions. Give it time. You know,
Fair enough.
Hold on.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. I really appreciate it. All right, Julie, it's been good seeing you, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.
Sounds great.
All right, take care. Have a good night.